Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant Horizon, watching the stars slowly drift past the main view screen. Her ship was 3 months into what should have been a routine survey mission in the Kepler 442 system. The crew of 147 men and women had been mapping potential colony worlds, taking samples, and sending regular reports back to Earth Command. It was peaceful work, the kind that let Chun sleep well at night. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," called out Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. Her voice carried that tone Chun had learned to recognize after 15 years in space. It was the sound of someone trying to stay calm while looking at something that didn't make sense. Chun walked over to Torres's station. The young officer had been with the ship for 2 years now, and she knew her job well. If Torres said something was strange, it was worth investigating. "What do you have, Lieutenant?" Torres pointed at her screen. "Unknown energy signature near the 4th planet. It's big, Captain. Really big. And it's not natural." Chun studied the readings. The energy pattern was unlike anything in their databases. It pulsed in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, but the signature suggested technology far more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. "Dr. Webb to the bridge." Chun called into her communicator. Chief Science Officer Marcus Webb arrived within minutes. He was a tall, thin man in his 50s, with graying hair and eyes that always seemed to be thinking about 3 different problems at once. Chun had worked with him on 2 previous missions, and she trusted his judgment completely. "Captain?" Webb asked, adjusting his glasses as he looked at the sensor data. "Take a look at this." "What do you think?" Webb studied the readings for several minutes, his frown deepening with each passing second. "This is artificial. Definitely artificial. The energy output suggests a structure of massive size, possibly several kilometers across. But the technology, double quotes, he shook his head. This is centuries ahead of anything we have. Could it be dangerous?" Chun asked. "Unknown. The energy pattern is stable, not building toward any kind of discharge. If I had to guess, I'd say we're looking at some kind of automated system, possibly a space station or research facility." Chun considered their options. First contact protocol required them to report any signs of alien technology immediately. But they were weeks away from the nearest human outpost, and by the time a proper first contact team arrived, another species might have claimed whatever was out there. Set course for the 4th planet, she decided. Yellow alert. All department heads to the briefing room in 30 minutes. The bridge crew acknowledged her orders, and Chun felt the familiar vibration as the ship's engines changed course. She had made thousands of decisions like this over her career, but something about this one felt different. Important. 2 hours later, the Defiant Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the 4th planet. What they found took everyone's breath away. It was a ring. A massive ring of dark metal and crystal that could have easily fit Earth's moon inside its circumference. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost like a language. Parts of the structure were clearly damaged, with entire sections torn away or collapsed, but other areas hummed with obvious power. "My God," whispered Dr. Webb from his position at the science station. "It's beautiful." Chun had to agree. Despite the obvious age and damage, the alien structure radiated a sense of purpose and intelligence that was impossible to ignore. Whoever had built this had been masters of engineering on a scale humanity could barely imagine. "Captain," called Torres, "I'm detecting atmosphere inside some sections of the ring. Breathable atmosphere. And there are what look like docking bays on the inner surface." "Any signs of life?" Chun asked. "Negative. No movement, no heat signatures, no communication signals. Whatever happened here, it happened a long time ago." Chun made her decision. Dr. Webb, Prepare an away team. Full archaeological protocols. We'll take one of the shuttles and see what we can learn. For the next 6 hours, Chun watched as her people explored the alien structure. The away team found corridors lined with symbols that might have been writing, rooms filled with devices, whose purpose could only be guessed at, and most importantly, what appeared to be a central computer core that was still partially functional. Dr. Webb's voice crackled over the communication system, barely containing his excitement. Captain, this is incredible. We're looking at star charts that cover half the galaxy. Propulsion theories that could cut our travel times by 90%. And Sarah, there are mineral surveys here showing the locations of rare element deposits. That could power human expansion for the next 1,000 years. Chun felt a chill of warning run down her spine. Discoveries like this had a way of attracting attention. The kind of attention that could be dangerous. As if summoned by her fears. Lieutenant Torres called out from her station. Captain, 3 ships just decloaked off our starboard bow. They're not human. Chun spun to face the main screen. 3 sleep vessels hung in space near the defiant horizon. They were beautiful in their own way, all curves and flowing lines that suggested they moved through space like fish through water. But there was something predatory about their design that made Chun's military instincts start screaming. Open a channel, she ordered. The main screen flickered, and Chun found herself looking at an alien face. A creature was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin was pale blue, marked with darker patterns that might have been tattoos or natural markings. Its eyes were larger than human eyes and completely black. When it spoke, its voice was cold and arrogant. I am Commander Vexhai of the Zephyrian Hegemony. You are trespassing in claimed space, humans. You will leave immediately. Chun kept her voice calm and diplomatic. Commander Vexhai, I am Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Defiant Horizon. We are on a peaceful scientific mission. We had no knowledge that this system was claimed by your people. We would be happy to share our findings with you and work together to study this remarkable structure. Vexhai's expression didn't change. Humans do not work with their betters. You are barbarians who have barely learned to leave your own star system. This technology is beyond your primitive understanding. You have one of your solar cycles to leave this system. If you remain, you will be removed. The communication ended abruptly, leaving Chun staring at the blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders. She could feel their tension, their readiness to follow whatever decision she made. Dr. Webb, she called into her communicator. How long do you need to download the critical data from that computer core? There was a pause before Webb replied. At least 12 hours for the basic information. 3 days for everything. Chun looked at the alien ships on her screen. They were larger than the Defiant Horizon and clearly built for war. But they were also vastly outnumbered by her crew, and humans had never been good at backing down from bullies. Begin emergency download procedures, she ordered. All non-essential personnel prepare for possible evacuation. And get me a channel to Earth Command. They need to know what we've found here. As her crew rushed to follow her orders, Chun continued to stare at the alien ships. She had the feeling that she had just made a decision that would change everything. For her crew, for humanity, and for the balance of power in this part of the galaxy. The question was whether they would know enough to see the consequences. Captain Chun stood in the cargo bay, watching as crates of research equipment and personal belongings moved toward the shuttle base. The evacuation was proceeding smoothly, but she could see the fear in her crew's faces. They trusted her, but they also knew they were in serious danger. Captain, Dr. Webb's voice came through her communicator. We've managed to download the star charts and the basic propulsion data. But there's so much more here. The mineral surveys alone could change Everything for humanity. Chun pressed the communicator button. How much more time do you need? 6 hours for the mineral data. Maybe 8 for the manufacturing processes. Captain, what we're looking at here could advance human technology by 200 years. We're talking about faster-than-light engines that don't require the massive power cores we use now. Materials that could make our ships 10 times stronger. Energy sources that could power entire colonies. Chun closed her eyes. 8 hours. The Zephyrians had given them 24 hours to leave, but she didn't trust Commander Vexhai to keep his word. The alien's tone had been too confident, too dismissive. He spoke like someone who had already decided what was going to happen. Keep working, she told Webb, but be ready to leave at a moment's notice. 3 hours later, Lieutenant Torres called out from her station. Captain, the Zephyrian ships are moving. They're taking position around us. Chun hurried to the bridge. The 3 alien vessels had spread out, forming a triangle with the defiant horizon in the center. It was a classic attack formation, designed to prevent escape. Open a channel to Commander Vexhai, Chun ordered. The alien's face appeared on the screen. His expression was even colder than before. You are still here, human. This shows either great courage or great stupidity. I suspect the latter. Commander, we are complying with your request. Our evacuation is nearly complete. We just need a few more hours to safely remove our people from the structure. Vexhai's black eyes narrowed. You lie. Our sensors show you are downloading data from the ancient systems. This is theft of Zephyrian property. The structure was clearly abandoned when we arrived, Sean said, keeping her voice steady. There were no territorial markers, no warning. Signals, by any reasonable interpretation of galactic salvage law. Humans do not lecture Zephyrians on law, Vexhai interrupted. His voice carried a threat that made the bridge crew tense. You will cease all data transfer immediately and surrender what you have already stolen. Chun felt anger building in her chest. She had tried diplomacy. She had offered to share their findings. She had even agreed to leave. But it was becoming clear that the Zephyrians had never intended to let them go peacefully. I'm sorry, Commander, but I cannot do that. The data we've collected is the result of our scientific research. We're willing to share it with your people, but we won't simply hand it over. Vexhai's expression turned ugly. Then you have chosen your fate. The communication ended. Seconds later, Torres shouted a warning. Energy spike from the lead Zephyrian. Ship. A brilliant beam of plasma shot across space, passing just above the defiant horizon's hull. The ship shook from the thermal shock, and damage reports started coming in immediately. Navigation array is damaged, reported Chief Engineer Rodriguez. We've lost our precision maneuvering capability. And Captain, we've got 12 injured in Section C where the heat pulse hit the hull. Chun gritted her teeth. The Zephyrians weren't trying to destroy them yet. This was a warning shot, designed to show their superiority and force surrender. But they had hurt her people, and that changed everything. Dr. Webb, she called into her communicator. Emergency evacuation. Get your team back to the ship now. Captain, we're in the middle of downloading the manufacturing data. Just give. Use 2 more hours, ... Now, Doctor, that's in order. Chun turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Park, what are our defensive options? Park, a young Korean woman who had graduated top of her class from the academy, checked her displays. Not good, Captain. Their ships are larger and more advanced than ours. Our shields might hold against 1 ship for a few minutes, but against 3... She shook her head. And offensive options? Our missile systems are no match for their point defense. Our railguns might penetrate their shields if we got close enough, but they won't let us get that close. Chun nodded grimly. She had expected as much. The Defiant Horizon was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had defensive systems, but they weren't designed to fight a superior force. Commander Vex High is calling again, Torres reported. Put him through. The alien's face appeared on the screen, but this time he looked satisfied, like a predator that had cornered its prey. Are you ready to be reasonable now, human? What do you want? Chun asked. All data you have stolen from the structure. All. Research notes. All records of what you found here. And you will submit to having your ship's computers searched to ensure you have hidden nothing. Chun felt her crew's eyes on her. They were waiting to see what kind of captain she really was. Whether she would fight or surrender. And if we comply, you will be allowed to leave. Eventually. That last word told Chun everything she needed to know. The Zephyrians had no intention of letting them go. They knew too much. They had seen the alien technology, recorded its location, and worst of all, they had proven that humans could understand and use it. I need time to consider your terms, Chun said. You have 1 hour, Vex High replied, and cut the communication. Chun turned to her senior officers. Options? We could try to make a run for it, suggested Park. If we dump all non-essential power. To the engines. They've damaged our navigation system, Rodriguez pointed out. We might be able to reach light speed, but we'd be flying blind. And they'd probably shoot us down before we could jump. What about hiding in the ring structure? Asked Torres. It's big enough, and the energy patterns might mask our signature. Chun shook her head. They know where we are. And they have 3 ships to our 1. They could just wait us out. Dr. Webb's voice came through the communicator. Captain, we're back aboard. But I managed to transmit a compressed data package toward human space before we left the structure. It'll take weeks to reach our nearest outpost, but at least some of what we learned here will survive. Chun felt a spark of hope. If the data reached Earth Command, at least humanity would know what they had found here. And they would know what had happened to the Defiant Horizon. Commander Vex High is hailing us again, Torres reported. This time, when the alien appeared on screen, his patience was clearly exhausted. Time is up, human. What is your decision? Chun stood straighter. She thought about her crew, about the families they had back on Earth, about the children who might never see their parents again. But she also thought about humanity itself, about the species that had climbed out of caves and reached for the stars, despite every obstacle in their path. My decision is no, she said clearly. We will not surrender our research, and we will not submit to having our ship searched. If you want what we found, you'll have to take it. Vex High's expression turned to one of pure rage. Then you will all die as examples to other humans who think they can defy the Zephyrian hegemony. The communication ended, and Chun knew there was no going back now. All hands, she announced over the ship's communication system. This is the captain. We are about to come under attack by hostile alien forces. All crew to emergency stations. Prepare for battle. As alarms began sounding throughout the ship, Chun looked out at the stars one more time. Whatever happened next, at least humanity would know that Captain Sarah Chun and the crew of the Defiant Horizon had not gone quietly into the dark. Admiral Jackson Hayes stood in the command center of Proxima Station, staring at the message display with growing anger. The emergency beacon from the UES Defiant Horizon had reached them 3 hours ago, followed by Dr. Webb's compressed data transmission. What he was reading made his blood run cold. Hayes was a big man in his 60s, with gray hair and scars on his hands from the Centauri border wars. He had been fighting humanity's enemies for 40 years, and he knew the look of trouble when he saw it. This was bigger than trouble. This was a disaster waiting to happen. How long ago was this transmission sent? He asked his communications officer. 3 weeks, sir. The beacon signal shows the Defiant Horizon as under attack by hostile alien forces. No further communication since then. Hayes studied the star charts Dr. Webb had managed to transmit. The alien technology described in the data could change everything. Faster engines, stronger materials, energy sources that could power human expansion across the galaxy. But more importantly, 847 human lives were in danger. "Get me Fleet Command," Hayes ordered. "Priority Alpha." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral Morrison, Hayes' superior and oldest friend. They had served together on 3 different ships before Morrison was promoted to Fleet Command. "Jack, I just saw the reports from Kepler 442. How bad is it?" "Bad enough," Hayes replied grimly. "Unknown alien species called the Zephyrian Hegemony has taken hostages and is claiming territory in our exploration zone. They've got Captain Shun and her entire crew." Morrison nodded slowly. "What do you need?" "Everything you can spare. This isn't just a rescue mission, Tom. If these Zephyrians think they can attack human ships and take our people hostage, we need to show them they're wrong. Otherwise, every exploration vessel in deep space becomes a target." "Agreed. What's your plan?" Hayes turned to the tactical display, showing the Kepler 442 system. Task Force Retribution. 12 ships. Heavy assault configuration. The cruiser Vengeance as flagship, destroyers Hammer and Anvil, the stealth frigate Shadow's Edge, and 8 assault vessels. Plus the 1st Colonial Marines Alpha Company. Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Alpha Company?" "Jack, those boys haven't seen action since the Titan Rebellion. Are you sure you want to wake them up for this?" Hayes smiled grimly. "Alpha Company was legendary in military circles. They were the Marines you called when everything else had failed, and you needed someone to do the impossible. They had earned their reputation in blood during the darkest days of humanity's expansion into space. If Captain Shun and her crew are still alive, they're going to need the best. And if they're not ... double quotes, Hayes, let the sentence hang in the air. Understood. You'll have your task force in 72 hours. And Jack, bring our people home." The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity. Ships converged on Proxima Station from across human space. The Vengeance arrived first, a massive heavy cruiser built for one purpose: destroying anything that threatened humanity. Her railguns could punch through asteroids, and her missile batteries could level a small moon. The destroyers Hammer and Anvil came next, smaller but faster, designed to hunt down enemy ships and tear them apart with precision. Strikes. The stealth frigate Shadow's Edge slipped into the formation almost unnoticed, her advanced cloaking systems making her nearly invisible to most sensors. But it was the arrival of Alpha Company that really got everyone's attention. The Marines came aboard their transport ships in full battle gear, their faces grim and ready for war. These were men and women who had volunteered for the most dangerous missions humanity could offer, and they looked like they could take on the entire galaxy if necessary. Colonel Sarah Martinez, Alpha Company's commanding officer, met with Admiral Hayes in his ready room. She was a small woman with dark eyes and the kind of quiet confidence that came from surviving things most people couldn't imagine. "Admiral, my Marines are ready. What's the situation?" Hayes showed her the intelligence reports. "Unknown alien species has taken hostages. They've got superior technology, but unknown numbers. We go in fast and hard, rescue our people, and show these Zephyrians that attacking humans comes with consequences." Martinez studied the tactical data. Rules of engagement? Whatever it takes to bring our people home safely. After that, we make sure this never happens again. Meanwhile, in the Kepler 442 system, the situation aboard the Defiant Horizon had gone from bad to worse. The Zephyrians had disabled the ship's faster-than-light engines with a targeted electromagnetic pulse, then forced their way aboard. Commander, Vex High now controlled most of the ship, with the surviving humans trapped in the heavily armored sections near the engineering decks. Captain, Chun crouched behind an overturned table in Engineering Section C, listening to the sound of Zephyrian. Soldiers moving through the corridors above. They had been fighting a running battle for 3 weeks now, using their knowledge of human ship design to stay one step ahead of their captors, but the cost had been terrible. 37 of her crew were dead, executed by Vex High as examples, when they refused to reveal the location of the hidden data cores. The Zephyrian commander seemed to enjoy killing humans, treating it like some kind of sport. Captain, whispered Chief Engineer Rodriguez from his position near the fusion reactor controls. The modifications are almost complete. If your rescue fleet shows up, we can give them one hell of a surprise. Sean nodded. Rodriguez had been working on his project for 2 weeks now, quietly modifying the ship's power systems, while the Zephyrians focused on hunting down the remaining crew. If it worked, it might be enough to turn the tide. How much longer? She asked. 6 hours, maybe 8. The hard part is making sure they don't notice what we're doing until it's too late. Dr. Webb crawled over from his position near the emergency medical station. Captain, I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications. They're getting impatient. Vex High has been ordered to finish this and return to their home territory. I think they're planning something big. As if summoned by his words, Vex High's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. Attention humans. You have hidden from us long enough. In 6 of your hours, we will begin executing 10 prisoners every hour until you surrender. Starting with your youngest crew members. Chun felt ice in her veins. The Zephyrians had captured some of her people during the initial assault, including several officers barely out of the academy. She couldn't let them die for her decisions. Captain, Rodriguez said quietly, if they start killing our people, ... I know, Chun replied, but we can't give up. If help is coming, it'll be soon. Dr. Webb got that transmission out. Earth Command knows what happened here. She looked around at her surviving officers. They were exhausted, scared, and running out of options. But they were still fighting, still believing that somehow they would get through this. Listen to me, she said. We've held out for 3 weeks against superior numbers and technology. We've shown these aliens that humans don't break easily. Whatever happens in the next few hours, remember that we did our duty. We protected valuable information that could help all of humanity, and we never stopped fighting. Above them, in the command center he had claimed as his own, Commander Vex High studied the tactical displays showing human space. Soon, his superiors would send more ships to this system to claim the ancient technology permanently. The humans would be forgotten, just another primitive species that had reached too far and paid the price. But deep in the outer system, sensors that no one was watching detected the first ripples in space-time that meant ships were dropping out. Of faster-than-light travel. Ships that were moving very fast and heading directly for the 4th planet. Admiral Hayes had arrived, and he was not in a diplomatic mood. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the tactical display as Task Force Retribution moved through the outer edge of the Kepler 442 system. 12 human ships, moving in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready. For war. Stealth reconnaissance complete, Admiral, reported Commander Blake from the Shadow's Edge. 3 Zephyrian vessels in orbit around the 4th planet. They have the Defiant Horizon trapped between them. Our sensors are detecting human life signs aboard the captured ship, but the numbers are not good. Hayes felt his jaw tighten. How? Many? 394, sir. Down from the original 847. Nearly half the crew was gone. Hayes had seen the reports of Zephyrian executions from Dr. Webb's transmission, but the reality hit him like a physical blow. These aliens had been systematically murdering human beings for 3 weeks. What about the alien ships? He asked. Standard formation around the captured vessel. They're not expecting an attack. No additional security patrols. No early warning. Systems. They're acting like they own this space. Hayes nodded grimly. The Zephyrians' overconfidence would be their undoing. They had no idea what was coming for them. Admiral, called his communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the lead Zephyrian ship. They want to talk. Put it through. Commander Vex High's face appeared on the main screen. The alien looked even more arrogant than he had in Dr. Webb's recordings, if that was possible. His black eyes showed no emotion as he spoke. I am Commander Vex High of the Zephyrian hegemony. You are the human military, I assume? You have come to negotiate for your captured people. Hayes kept his expression neutral. I am Admiral Jackson Hayes of the United Earth Fleet. I'm here to collect my people and my ship. Vex High's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. You are in no position to make demands, human. We hold your ship and your crew. If you wish them returned, you will agree to our terms. What terms? Complete withdrawal of all human ships from this sector. Recognition of Zephyrian sovereignty over this system and all systems within 50 light years. And payment of compensation for our time and effort in dealing with your criminals. Hayes looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at the screen with expressions of barely controlled anger. They had all read the reports. They knew what the Zephyrians had done to the Defiant Horizons crew. I have a counteroffer, Hayes said calmly. You have exactly 60 seconds to release all human prisoners and surrender your ships. After that, things get unpleasant. Vex High actually laughed. You threaten us? Your primitive vessels are no match for Zephyrian technology. We destroyed your exploration ship easily. We will do the same to your war fleet. 50 seconds, Hayes replied. The alien's expression turned ugly. Very well, since you will not. Be reasonable. I will demonstrate Zephyrian superiority. Watch as we execute more of your people. The screen changed to show the interior of the Defiant Horizon. A group of human prisoners knelt on the floor while Zephyrian soldiers stood over them with energy weapons. Hayes recognized several faces from the crew files. Young officers who had trusted their government to keep them safe in the dark between the stars. 40 seconds, Hayes said, his voice like ice. Vex High raised his hand, ready to give the execution. Order. Any last words, Admiral? Hayes looked directly into the alien's black eyes. Yes, you should have let them go. He nodded to his tactical officer. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. What happened next took less than 30 seconds, but it felt like an eternity to the Zephyrians. The stealth frigate Shadow's Edge had been moving into position for the last hour, her advanced cloaking systems making her invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Now she struck like her name suggested, emerging from the darkness to launch a full spread of missiles at the nearest alien ship. The Zephyrian vessel's shields flared and died under the unexpected assault. Secondary explosions tore through its hull as the Shadow's Edge vanished back into stealth mode. At the same moment, the destroyer's hammer and anvil accelerated to attack speed, their railguns charging with enough power to level mountains. They had positioned themselves on opposite sides of the Zephyrian formation, and now they opened fire simultaneously. The railgun projectiles moved at nearly the speed of light, hitting the second Zephyrian ship before its crew even realized they were under attack. The alien vessel's shields held for exactly 2 seconds before the metal slugs punched through them like tissue paper. The ship broke apart in a brilliant explosion that lit up the entire system. Commander Vex High stared at his tactical displays. In shock, 2 of his ships were gone, destroyed in seconds by weapons that should not have been able to penetrate Zephyrian defenses. His remaining vessel, the Dominion's Fist, was alone against an entire human fleet. "Impossible," he whispered. "Our technology is superior. Our shields are impenetrable." His tactical officer looked up from his station with terror in his alien eyes. "Commander, their weapons are using kinetic energy at relativistic speeds. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at light speed." Vex-High spun toward the communication console. "Human Admiral, I demand you cease this attack immediately. We have hostages. If you continue, we will kill them all." Hayes's face appeared on the screen, and Vex-High was surprised to see no anger there, just cold, professional determination. "You should have thought of that before you started executing prisoners. You had your chance to do this the easy way. We still have your people." Vex-High shouted. "We can destroy your ship. Go ahead," Hayes replied calmly. "Try it." Vex-High hesitated. Something in the human's tone warned him that this was a trap, but he couldn't see how. The Dominion's Fist still had its weapons. They could still destroy the captured human vessel and everyone aboard it. "Fire on the human ship," he ordered. His weapons officer shook his head. "Commander, I'm reading massive energy spikes from their vessel. If we fire on them, the explosion will destroy us as well." Deep in the engineering section of the Defiant Horizon, Chief Engineer Rodriguez smiled as he watched his improvised weapon come online. For 3 weeks, he had been quietly rerouting power from non-essential systems into the ship's main fusion reactor. Not to overload it, but to create a massive electromagnetic pulse that would fry every electronic system within 10 kilometers dot. If the Zephyrians tried to destroy the ship, Rodriguez would trigger his device. The pulse would shut down their weapons and engines, leaving them helpless. It was a desperate plan, but it was better than letting his crewmates die without a fight. Captain Chun's voice came through his communicator. "Rodriguez, are you ready?" "Standing by, Captain. If they so much as twitch, I'll light them up like a Christmas tree." On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Hayes watched the final Zephyrian ship with the patience of a predator. He had positioned his fleet perfectly. The alien vessel was surrounded, outgunned, and facing weapons they clearly didn't understand. But he wasn't done sending messages. "Launch the boarding pods," he ordered. 12 heavily armored pods shot out from the human ships, each one carrying a squad of colonial marines from Alpha Company. The pods were designed to punch through enemy hulls and deliver troops directly into the heart of enemy vessels. Commander Vex-High watched in horror as the human pods slammed into his ship's hull like hammers. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the Dominion's Fist as humans began cutting their way inside. "This is Colonel Martinez," came a voice over the communication system. "Alpha Company is aboard your vessel. Surrender now, and you might live to see tomorrow." Vex-High looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. Everything had gone wrong so quickly. One moment they had been in complete control, and the next their fleet was destroyed, and humans were cutting through their ship like it was made of paper. "How?" he whispered. "How did primitive humans defeat superior Zephyrian technology?" Admiral Hayes heard the question over the open channel and decided to answer it. "Because you made one mistake, Commander. You thought technology was enough. You forgot that when you threaten our people, we don't just fight back. We fight too. Win. And we're very, very good at it." The sound of human marines moving through Zephyrian corridors echoed through the communication system. Soon, Commander Vex-High would learn firsthand what happened when someone made the mistake of taking human prisoners. Admiral Hayes had promised to bring his people home. Now he was going to keep that promise and make sure the galaxy understood what happened to anyone who tried to stop him. Commander Vex-High sat in the detention cell aboard the Vengeance, his hands bound with human restraints, They were far stronger than they looked. Through the transparent wall, he could see Admiral Hayes approaching with 2 Marine guards. The human's face showed no emotion, but Vexhai had learned to fear that calm expression. A cell door opened with a soft hiss. Hayes entered and stood looking down at the Zephyrian commander. For a long moment, neither spoke. "By what right do you dare attack Zephyrian forces?" Vexhai finally demanded. "We were operating in claimed territory. You had no authority to interfere." Hayes pulled up a chair and sat down. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute certainty. "You made it our business the moment you touched our people. We don't negotiate with hostage-takers, and we don't forget. This act of aggression will not go unanswered," Vexhai said, trying to summon his old arrogance. "The hegemony will send fleets to destroy your primitive worlds." Hayes smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let them come. We'll be ready." 3 hours later, Hayes stood on the bridge of the rescued Defiant Horizon. Captain Chun had been treated for her injuries and was back on duty, though her ship would need months of repairs. Around them, human work crews moved through the corridors, removing Zephyrian equipment and restoring the vessel to working order. "Status report," Hayes asked. "We've rescued all surviving crew members," Chun replied. 394 out of 847. The Zephyrians executed the others over the past 3 weeks. Her voice was steady, but Hayes could see the pain in her eyes. "They'll answer for that," Hayes said grimly. "What about the alien technology?" "Doctor." Webb looked up from his workstation. "Incredible, Admiral. With the complete data we've recovered, we're looking at advances in propulsion, materials science, and energy generation that will change everything. The manufacturing processes alone could revolutionize our shipbuilding capabilities." Hayes nodded. "How long before we can put this technology to use?" 6 months for the basic applications. 2 years for full integration. "Admiral, with these advances, we could build ships twice as fast and 3 times as powerful as anything we have now." "Good. We're going to need them." Hayes turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to all Zephyrian frequencies. I want this broadcast across their entire territory." The officer nodded. "Ready to transmit, sir." Hayes looked directly into the camera, his expression hard as granite. "This is Admiral Jackson Hayes of the United Earth Fleet, speaking to the Zephyrian hegemony and all who receive this transmission. 3 weeks ago, your forces attacked a peaceful human exploration vessel, took hostages, and executed innocent civilians. This aggression has been answered." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Your fleet in the Kepler 442 system has been destroyed. Your commander is our prisoner. Your territorial claims in this sector are hereby rejected. The species you call humans extend this singular warning to the Zephyrian hegemony and all who witness this transmission. We came to your space in peace, seeking knowledge, offering friendship. You chose violence against the innocent. You will live with the consequences of that choice." The transmission ended. Around the bridge, human officers went about their duties with quiet efficiency. But Hayes knew that every one of them understood what had just happened. Humanity had announced itself as a major power in this part of the galaxy, and they had done it in blood. 6 months later, Admiral Chun stood on the observation deck of Va Kepler Station, watching as construction crews put the finishing touches on humanity's first deep space military stronghold. The station was built around the ancient alien ring, incorporating both human engineering and recovered alien technology. The transformation had been remarkable. The alien manufacturing processes had allowed human shipyards to work faster than ever before. The new propulsion systems meant human ships could travel farther and faster than any previous generation. Most importantly, the advanced materials meant human vessels could stand up to anything the galaxy could throw at them. Impressive, isn't it? Dr. Webb said, joining her at the observation window. Chun nodded. Hard to believe it's only been 6 months since we first found this place. The engineering teams estimate the station will be fully operational within another month. Docking facilities for 50 ships, manufacturing capabilities for advanced technology, and enough firepower to hold off a fleet. Chun watched as a group of human destroyers moved past the station on patrol. They looked different from the old ships, sleeker and more powerful. The alien technology had given humanity capabilities that rivaled the galaxy's established powers. Any word from the Zephyrians? She asked. Webb shook his head. Complete radio silence since Admiral Hayes's broadcast. Our scouts report increased. Military activity in their home systems, but no movement toward human space. They're scared, Chun said with satisfaction. Good. Maybe they'll think twice before attacking another human ship. On the other side of the galaxy, in the council chambers of 6 different alien civilizations, ambassadors and military leaders watched recordings of the Battle of Kepler 442 with growing concern. The humans had appeared from nowhere, destroyed. A superior force with devastating efficiency, and claimed territory in one of the most strategically important sectors of local space. Their weapons technology is remarkable, observed Ambassador Krex of the Altarian Republic. Kinetic projectiles. At relativistic speeds. Simple, but devastatingly effective against energy-based defenses. More concerning is their tactical coordination, added General Thierok of the Centauri Alliance. They moved 12 ships in perfect formation, struck simultaneously from multiple vectors, and achieved total victory in under an hour. This suggests significant military experience. The question, said Prime Minister Veltar of the Andromedan Cooperative, is what they intend to do with their new capabilities. The answer came 3 weeks later when human diplomatic missions arrived at every major government in the local sector. The message was simple and direct. Humanity was open to peaceful relations, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. But they would not tolerate aggression against human civilians or interference with human exploration efforts. Most governments accepted the human proposals eagerly. The technology demonstrations that accompanied the diplomatic missions made it clear that humanity had become a force to be reckoned with. Trade in human-manufactured goods began flowing immediately, with alien governments eager to access the advanced materials and energy systems humanity could now produce. The Zephyrian hegemony remained silent. 1 year after the rescue of the Defiant, Horizon, Lieutenant Sarah Park stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. She was no longer a junior tactical officer, but a full commander, promoted after her service during the Kepler crisis. Commander, called her sensor operator, we're receiving a distress signal from the exploration vessel Pioneer. They're under attack by unknown vessels in the Vega system. Park didn't hesitate. Set course for Vega, maximum speed. Signal the fleet to follow us in. As the Retribution accelerated toward another crisis, Park thought about Admiral Hayes's words from a year ago. The galaxy had learned that humanity protected its own. When they were pushed, humans didn't just push back, they pushed through. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency around her. They were ready for whatever they would find in the Vega system. After all, they were human. They had proven what that meant when someone threatened their people, and the galaxy was still learning to respect that lesson. In his retirement home on Earth, Admiral Hayes watched the news reports of humanity's growing influence among the stars. New colonies were being established. Trade networks were expanding. The human fleet grew stronger every month. But most importantly, no human ship had been attacked by hostile aliens since the Battle of Kepler-442. Sometimes, Hayes reflected, the best way to ensure peace was to make absolutely certain that everyone understood the cost of breaking it. The Zephyrians had learned that lesson the hard way. Now it was the galaxy's turn to decide whether they wanted to be humanity's friends or join the Zephyrians in learning why that was the smart choice. The morning sun on Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the mining colony of New Gettysburg. Sarah Martinez walked along the dusty main street, carrying a basket of fresh vegetables from the hydroponic farms. The air was clean and crisp, nothing like the polluted atmosphere of Earth that her grandparents used to describe. Here on this distant world, 200 light years from home, life was simple and peaceful. Children ran past her, laughing as they chased each other between the prefab buildings. Their parents watched from doorways, smiling at the sight. These families had come here seeking a better life, away from Earth's crowded cities and endless wars. They found it in the red soil of this frontier world, rich with rare metals that Earth needed desperately. Tom Rodriguez was fixing a mining crawler near the equipment yard. The massive machine had broken down again, but Tom didn't mind. He enjoyed working with his hands, building things that lasted. His wife Maria was inside their small home, preparing lunch for their twin boys. In a few hours, the whole family would sit together and share a meal, just like they did every day. The colony had grown slowly over the past 15 years. What started as a small outpost with 50 people had become a thriving community of 8,000 souls. They had built schools, hospitals, and even a small theater where local actors performed plays for the colonists. It was not Earth, but it was home. Dr. James Chun checked the readings on his geological survey equipment. The mineral deposits here were incredible. The rare Earth elements they extracted powered everything from starship engines to medical equipment back on Earth. The work was hard, but the colonists knew they were helping their species expand among the stars. Every ton of ore they shipped home meant another family could leave Earth's troubles behind. The communications center buzzed with activity as usual. Emily Washington, the colony's chief communications officer, monitored the quantum relay that connected New Gettysburg to Earth. Messages traveled instantly across the vast distance through quantum entanglement, a technology that still amazed her even after years of using it. Today's message traffic was normal. Supply requests, personal letters to families on Earth, and reports on mining operations. Captain Jack Murphy of the Colony Security Force made his daily rounds. Crime was almost unknown on New Gettysburg. People worked hard and looked out for each other. The biggest problem he usually dealt with was teenagers staying out past curfew or minor disputes between neighbors. His security team of 12 officers spent most of their time helping with medical emergencies or equipment failures. The colony had no military presence, no weapons larger than hunting rifles, no shields or defensive systems. Why would they need such things? The nearest alien civilization was hundreds of light years away, and humanity had never encountered a hostile species. The galaxy seemed vast and empty, with plenty of room for everyone. Got above the colony. The orbital monitoring station detected something unusual. Lieutenant Rebecca Torres, the only person on duty, noticed strange readings on her sensors. The signals looked like ships, but that was impossible. No vessels were scheduled to arrive for another 3 weeks. She ran a diagnostic on her equipment, assuming the sensors were malfunctioning. The readings grew stronger. Rebecca's training told her to report anything unusual, but she hesitated. The last time she had reported a false alarm, the colony administrator had been very unhappy. She decided to wait a few more minutes and see if the signals disappeared. Far above the planet's atmosphere, space began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmer grew larger and more intense until it seemed to tear open reality itself. From this impossible opening, ships emerged. Not human ships with their familiar metal hulls and blue engine flames, but something entirely different. These vessels looked like they were carved from giant crystals. Their surfaces reflected light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. They moved without any visible engines, gliding through space as smoothly as fish swimming through water. The largest ship was over 2 kilometers long, dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. There were dozens of them, arranged in a perfect formation that spoke of military precision. Their crystal hulls pulsed with inner light, like heartbeats made of energy. No human had ever seen their like before, but the purpose of their visit became clear within moments. On the lead ship's bridge, Commander Zetherix studied the world. Below, through sensors, they could count individual humans on the surface. The primitive carbon-based life forms had spread their contamination to yet another world. Their dirty industrial processes scarred the planet's surface. Their biological waste polluted the clean mineral deposits. The commander's crystalline body resonated with disgust. These creatures bred like bacteria, consuming everything in their path. They had no right to exist in a galaxy that belonged to higher forms of life. The Zephyrian hegemony had ruled this region of space for 10,000 years. Long before these mammals had crawled out of their mud, the decision had been made by the High Council. Humanity would be taught its place. These 12 colonies would serve as an example. The survivors, if any, would carry the message back to their homeworld. Stay on your birth planet or face extinction. Rebecca Torres finally decided to sound the alarm when her sensors showed 47 alien vessels in orbit above New Gettysburg. She reached for the emergency broadcast button, her hands shaking with fear and excitement. First contact with an alien species. This would change everything for humanity. She never got the chance to press the button. The first energy beam struck the communications center with the force of a nuclear weapon. The building and everyone inside, it vanished in a flash of superheated plasma. Rebecca's last thought was wonder at the beautiful crystal ships that had come from the stars. More beams lanced down from orbit, each one precisely targeted. The power plant exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the morning sky. The mining equipment melted into slag. The hospital where Dr. Susan Park was treating a child's broken arm became a crater filled with glowing glass. Sarah Martinez dropped her basket and ran toward her home, screaming her children's names. The vegetables scattered across the street as buildings exploded around her. The air filled with smoke and the screams of the dying. She made it 3 blocks before the orbital bombardment turned her neighborhood into a sea of flames. Tom Rodriguez looked up from his broken mining crawler to see death falling from the sky. He had just enough time to whisper his wife's name before the energy beam found him. The crawler, which had taken him hours to repair, became a puddle of molten metal in seconds. All across New Gettysburg, families were torn apart in moments. Children who had been playing in the streets were gone. Parents who had been preparing lunch never saw their families again. 8,000 people who had come to the stars seeking a better life found only fire and death. The bombardment continued for 6 hours. The alien ships worked methodically, ensuring that nothing larger than a pebble remained of the human settlement. They scoured the planet's surface clean, erasing every trace that humanity had ever set foot on this world. When it was over, Kepler 442b looked exactly as it had before the first human colonists arrived. The only difference was a large patch of perfectly smooth glass where New Gettysburg had once stood. The mineral deposits remained untouched, ready for proper mining by a superior species. Across human space, similar attacks were happening simultaneously. 12 colonies, 2 million. People wiped out in a single day. The aliens had planned their strike perfectly, hitting multiple targets at once to prevent any warning from being sent. But they had made one crucial mistake. They let one colony's quantum relay transmit for just long enough to send a single message across the galaxy. 4 words that would change everything We are under attack. The message reached Earth 3 days after the attacks. 4 simple words carried across the galaxy by quantum relay. We are under attack. Then silence. Complete, terrible silence from 12 human colonies that had been home to 2 million. People. President Elena Vasquez stood in the emergency command center beneath Geneva, staring at the holographic display that showed the locations of the destroyed colonies. Red dots marked where thriving human settlements had existed just days before. Now those red dots represented nothing but empty space and floating debris. General Marcus Stone placed a hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am, we need to make a decision. The other colonies are asking for instructions. They're scared." Elena nodded slowly. She had been president for 6 years, dealing with trade disputes and resource allocation. Nothing had prepared her for this moment. Nothing could have prepared any human leader for the first genocide committed against their species by aliens. "Get me Admiral Chun," she said quietly, "and call an emergency session of the Defense Council. Every member, every nation. Right now." Across Earth, the news spread like wildfire. At first, people couldn't believe it. Alien contact had been humanity's greatest dream for centuries. Scientists had spent lifetimes searching for radio signals from other civilizations. The discovery that humans were not alone in the universe should have been a moment of celebration. Instead, it became a day of mourning. In New York, crowds gathered. In Times Square, watching the news broadcasts in stunned silence. In London, Big Ben tolled for the dead. In Tokyo, millions of people lit candles and placed them in windows, creating rivers of light across the city. The entire human race grieved together for family members they would never see again. But grief was only the first emotion. As the hours passed and the reality sank in, something else began to grow in the hearts and minds of humanity. Something darker and more dangerous than sorrow. Anger. Admiral Sarah Chun received the call while reviewing fleet deployments of Luna Command. She had spent 30 years in the Space Navy, fighting pirates and rebels who threatened human shipping lanes. She thought she had seen the worst that intelligent beings could do to each other. She was wrong. 2 million civilians, she said. To her aide, Lieutenant Commander Park. Children, families, people who never hurt anyone. Wiped out without warning, without mercy, without even a chance to surrender. Park had served under Chun for 8 years. He had never seen his commander show this kind of cold fury before. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she read the reports from the destroyed colonies. "Admiral, the President wants to speak with you personally." Secure channel. Chun walked to her private office and activated the quantum communicator. President Vasquez appeared on the screen, her face drawn with exhaustion and grief. "Sarah, I need your honest assessment. Can we defend our remaining colonies?" Chun studied the tactical displays surrounding her desk. Humanity had spread across 47 star systems in the past century. Their navy consisted of patrol ships and cargo haulers, designed for peacekeeping and trade protection. Nothing built for real war. With our current fleet? No, ma'am. We have good ships and brave crews, but we're not equipped for this kind of fight. Our weapons are meant for pirates and smugglers, not alien warships that can destroy entire planets. Then, what do you recommend? Chun was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of a decision that would change human history forever. We give them exactly what they wanted, Mom. They wanted to see what humans do when we're cornered. They wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. I say we show them both. The emergency session of the United Earth Defense Council began 6 hours later. Representatives from every nation, corporation, and colony gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. For the first time in human history, there were no arguments about territory or resources. No debates about trade agreements or mining rights. Every person in that room was united by a single purpose. Secretary General Williams called the session to order. Ladies and gentlemen, we face an unprecedented crisis. An alien civilization has committed acts of war against peaceful human settlements. The question before us is simple. How do we respond? The British representative stood first. My government pledges our entire industrial capacity to the war effort. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource we have. The Chinese delegate rose next. The People's Republic offers the same. Our mining operations, our manufacturing centers, everything. One by one, every representative made similar commitments. The Americans offered their advanced computer systems. The Europeans provided their fusion technology. The Martian colonies shared their expertise in mining and construction. The asteroid belt stations contributed their knowledge of zero gravity. Manufacturing. Admiral Chun watched from the observer's gallery as humanity transformed before her eyes. These people had been arguing with each other for decades over everything from trade routes to terraforming rights. Now they spoke with one voice, moved by one purpose. Dr. Marcus Webb, the chief scientist at the Geneva Research Institute, requested permission to address the council. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke in public, preferring the safety of his laboratory to the chaos of politics. Honored delegates, he began, his voice shaking slightly. For the past 20 years, my team has been working on theoretical weapons projects, technologies that we hoped we would never need to use. Today, I believe the time has come to turn theory into reality. He activated a holographic projector, showing designs that looked more like science fiction than actual blueprints. Ships that bent space around them, weapons that could ignite stars, armor that existed in multiple dimensions at once. We call it Project Ragnarok, Webb continued, the end of worlds. These technologies require resources and manufacturing capabilities beyond anything we have ever attempted. But with the combined industrial might of all human worlds working together, double quotes, President Vasquez leaned forward in her chair. How long would it take? 18 months for the first prototypes, 2 years for a full deployment. But Mom, these WEAPONs, they will change us. Once we build them, there's no going back to being the peaceful species we were before. The hall fell silent. Every person understood what Webb was saying. Humanity stood at a crossroads. They could choose to remain the same species that had built peaceful colonies among the stars, accepting their fate as victims of alien aggression. Or they could become something else entirely. Admiral Chun stood and requested permission to speak. Her words would be remembered for generations. 3 days ago, we learned that we are not alone in the galaxy. We also learned that there are species out there who see us as nothing more than insects to be exterminated. They killed our children while they slept. They burned our homes and called it justice. They wanted to teach us our place in the universe. She paused, looking around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. I say we teach them something in return. I say we show them what happens when you corner a species that has survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and world wars. A species that has never backed down from a fight, no matter how impossible the odds. The applause started slowly, just a few people clapping. Then it grew, spreading through the assembly like wildfire. Soon every person in the hall was on their feet, cheering and stamping their feet. The sound echoed through the building and out into the streets, where crowds of people joined in without even knowing why. President Vasquez called for a formal vote. The resolution was simple. Authorize Project Ragnarok and commit the full resources of human civilization to its completion. The vote was unanimous. Not a single dissenting voice. As the delegates filed out to begin the greatest mobilization in human history. Admiral Chun remained behind with President Vasquez and Dr. Webb. The three of them stood looking at the holographic displays, showing the alien ship designs that had destroyed the colonies. They made one mistake, Chun said quietly. They let one of our quantum relays transmit long enough to send a message. They wanted survivors to carry word back to Earth, to spread fear among our people. Instead, they gave us something else. Vasquez added. Webb nodded, understanding. They gave us a target. Now we know they exist. We know they can be found. And soon we'll have the tools to find them. Across human space, the great transformation began. Every shipyard that had built cargo haulers started constructing warships. Every factory that had made consumer goods switched to producing weapons. Every mining operation that had extracted materials for peaceful purposes now fed the hunger of the war machine. But the most important change was not in the factories or shipyards. It was in the hearts and minds of humanity itself. A species that had spent centuries reaching for the stars in peace was learning to reach for them in war. The aliens had wanted to show humans their place in the galaxy. Soon they would discover that humanity's place was wherever they chose to put it. 18 months after the attacks, Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the hidden shipyard on the far side of Luna, watching humanity's greatest achievement take shape. The construction bay was larger than any building on Earth, carved deep into the moons, surface and hidden from alien eyes by layers of rock and steel. Inside the bay, the first Titan-class warship grew like a metal mountain. 3 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide, the ship dwarfed anything humans had ever built before. Its hull was not made of ordinary steel or titanium, but from a new material that Dr. Webb's team called phase steel. A metal could exist in normal space or shift into quantum dimensions, making it nearly impossible to destroy. How are the neural interface tests going? Webb asked Dr. Elena Rodriguez, his lead engineer on the consciousness transfer project. Elena wiped sweat from her forehead. She had been working for 16 hours straight, testing the systems that would allow a human mind to merge with the ship's computers. The volunteers are adapting better than we hoped. The human brain seems naturally suited for this kind of connection. It's as if we were meant to become one with our machines. Webb nodded, but he felt a chill down his spine. The technology they were creating was incredible, but it changed people. The test pilots who had linked with the prototype systems were different afterwards. Calmer, more focused, but also somehow less human. They spoke about space and time in ways that ordinary people couldn't understand. Any word from Admiral Chun? Elena asked. She be here tomorrow for the first full test. The president wants to see what 18 months and the resources of 47 star systems have produced. Across human space, similar construction projects were nearing completion. The asteroid mining stations had been converted into weapons factories, producing devices that bent the laws of physics. The Martian colonies had become testing grounds for new armor systems that could stop planet-killing energy beams. Every human world contributed something to Project RAGNAROK. Admiral Sarah Chung arrived at Luna Base the next morning, accompanied by President Vasquez and a small group of military observers. Chun had aged in the past year and a half. Her hair was completely gray now, and lines of stress marked her face. The weight of commanding humanity's response to genocide had changed her, just as the war effort had changed their entire species. Show me what we've built, she said simply. Dr. Webb led the group through the shipyard, explaining the technologies that had once existed only in theory. The fusion reactors that burned hotter than stars. The gravity manipulation systems that could create artificial black holes. The quantum torpedoes that could strike targets in parallel dimensions. This is the neural interface chamber, Webb explained as they entered a spherical room filled with glowing cables and monitoring equipment. The ship's captain doesn't just give orders to the computer. They become part of the ship itself. Their consciousness merges with the artificial. Intelligence, creating something greater than either human or machine alone. President Vasquez studied the interface chair with obvious concern. What happens to the person who uses this system? They remain human, Webb said carefully. But they also become something more. The test pilots describe it as being able to think with the speed of light, to feel the movement of planets, to understand space and time in ways that words cannot express. Are they still loyal to humanity? Admiral Chun asked. Elena answered this time. More loyal than ever, Admiral. The interface doesn't change their emotions or their sense of duty. It enhances them. A human connected to these systems doesn't just fight for humanity. They become the living embodiment of human will. Chun walked over to the interface chair and placed her hand on its smooth surface. I want to be the first to test the full system. Admiral, we don't know all the long-term effects yet, Webb protested. The neural connection is permanent. Once you link with the ship, you'll never be completely separate from it again. Good, Chun replied coldly. I want to feel those alien ships dying. I want their destruction to become part of my soul. The test was scheduled for the following week. During that time, Chun underwent medical preparation and neural conditioning. The process was painful, involving surgery to implant quantum processors directly into her brain tissue. But she endured it without complaint, driven by the memory of 2 million dead civilians. On the day of the test, Chun lay in the interface chair as technicians attached the neural cables to the ports in her skull. Dr. Webb monitored her vital signs from the control room, while Elena managed the connection process. Beginning neural link in 3, 2, 1, Elena announced. The change was immediate and startling. Chun's eyes rolled back, showing only white, and her body went completely rigid. For a moment, Webb thought something had gone wrong. Then the massive ship outside began to move. The Titan-class warship, which had required hundreds of workers and powerful engines to position in the construction bay, rose smoothly into space. Under its own power, Chun was not just controlling the ship. She had become the ship. Through the neural link, Chun could feel every system aboard the vessel. The fusion reactors were like hearts beating in her chest. The sensor arrays were extensions of her eyes and ears. The weapons systems were her hands, ready to reach across space and destroy her enemies. Admiral, can you hear me? Webb asked over the communication system. Chun's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different. More focused, more certain than it had ever been before. I can hear you, Doctor, but I can also hear so much more. The gravitational pull of every planet in this system, the electromagnetic radiation from the sun, the quantum fluctuations in empty space itself. How do you feel? I feel powerful, Chun replied. For the first time since the attacks, I feel like we have a chance to win this war. The test continued for 6 hours. Chun demonstrated the ship's incredible capabilities, moving faster than any human vessel had ever moved, maneuvering with precision that defied belief. The weapons tests were conducted in empty space, but their power was obvious. The gravity cannons created distortions that would have torn apart any conventional starship. The Nova bombs released energy equivalent to small suns. When the test ended and Shun disconnected from the neural interface, she sat in silence for several minutes. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. It's beautiful, she whispered. Being connected to something so powerful, so perfect. I understand now why we had to suffer the attacks. We needed to become this. We needed to evolve. President Vasquez looked concerned. Admiral, you're talking like this was all predestined. Chun wiped her eyes and stood up straighter. Maybe it was, Mom. Maybe every species has to face a moment like this. A test that either destroys them or transforms them into something greater. The aliens thought they were exterminating vermin. Instead, they created their own doom. Over the following months, 6 more Titan-class warships were completed. Each was paired with a volunteer captain who underwent the neural interface procedure. The volunteers came from different backgrounds, but they all shared one thing in common. They had lost family members in the alien attacks. Captain David Kim had commanded a cargo hauler that was destroyed while trying to evacuate civilians from the colony at Kepler 186F. He survived, but his entire crew died in the attack. Now he bonded with the U.S. Memorial, a ship designed to honor the dead by avenging them. Captain Lisa Turner had been a mining engineer on Proxima Station when the aliens struck. She watched her husband and daughter die in the bombardment while she was trapped in a deep mine shaft. The U.S. vengeance became her weapon of retribution. Captain Robert Chung had been a peaceful scientist studying alien artifacts on the archaeological colony at Wolf 359. The aliens destroyed his life's work, along with everyone he cared about. The U.S. retribution gave him the power to strike back. Each captain brought their own pain and fury to the neural interface. The ships became extensions of human grief, transformed into instruments of war. But they were also something more. The combination of human emotion and artificial intelligence created beings that thought and fought in ways no species in the galaxy had ever seen. As the fleet prepared for its first mission, Admiral Chun stood on the observation deck of Luna base, watching the 7 Titan ships hanging in space like sleeping giants. They looked peaceful enough, but she knew what they were capable of. She had felt their power flowing through her own mind. The aliens wanted to show us our place in the galaxy, she said to Dr. Webb, who had joined her at the viewing window. They thought we were weak because we were peaceful. They mistook our kindness for cowardice. And now? Webb asked. Chun smiled. But there was no warmth in it. Now they're going to learn what humans are really capable of when someone threatens our children. They're going to discover that some species are too dangerous to provoke. The 7 Titan ships began moving in perfect formation, their phase steel hulls shimmering as they prepared to enter hyperspace. Each ship carried the anger of an entire species, focused through human technology into weapons that could reshape reality itself. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's true nature had been hidden all along. They were not the peaceful explorers they had seemed to be. They were predators, and they had finally decided to hunt. The Zephyrian border fortress of Zentra Prime had guarded the approach to their empire for 3,000 years. Built into the largest asteroid in the Vega system, the massive structure bristled with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Crystal spires reached out from the rocky surface like frozen lightning, each one housing energy cannons that had never been defeated in battle. Commander Zephyrex stood in the central command chamber, his crystalline body glowing with confidence. The primitive humans had been quiet for almost 2 years since the lesson at their colonies. Perhaps they had finally learned their place and would stay on their dirty homeworld where they belonged. Commander, his aide announced, our sensors detect 7 ships approaching from human space. They appear to be moving at standard hyperspace speeds. Zephyrex felt amusement ripple through his crystal matrix. Only 7 ships? These mammals must be even more foolish than we thought. Activate all defensive systems and prepare to give them another demonstration of Zephyrian power. 20 light minutes away, Admiral Sarah Chun felt the fortress through her neural link with the U.S. Retribution. The ship's sensors were her eyes, and she could see every weapon emplacement, every defensive shield, every weak point in the alien structure. But more than that, she could feel the presence of the other 6 Titan ships around her, their captains' minds linked to hers through the quantum communication network. All ships report ready, Admiral, Captain Kim transmitted from the U.S. Memorial. His voice carried the cold fury of a man who had watched his crew die. "Target analysis complete," Captain Turner added from the UES Vengeance. Her ship's computers had identified the fortress's power sources and weapon systems with deadly precision. Sean allowed herself a moment to appreciate the irony. The aliens had built their fortress to withstand conventional attacks from ships. That followed the normal laws of physics. They had never imagined facing vessels that could bend space and time, controlled by human minds that thought faster than their computers could calculate. "All ships commence attack pattern Alpha," Chun ordered. "Show them what human vengeance looks like." The 7 Titan ships dropped out of hyperspace simultaneously, appearing in normal space like ghosts materializing from another dimension. To the Zephyrian sensors, they seemed impossibly small compared to the massive fortress. Each human vessel was only 3 kilometers long, while Zentra Prime was the size of a small moon. The fortress opened fire immediately. Hundreds of crystal spires launched beams of pure energy that could crack planets. The space around the human ships filled with deadly light, as enough firepower to destroy a solar system focused on 7 targets. The beams struck empty space. The Titan ships danced through the barrage like leaves in a gentle breeze. Their phase steel hulls shifted in and out of normal space, making most of the alien weapons pass harmlessly through them. When a beam did connect with solid matter, the ship's armor absorbed the energy and channeled it into their own power systems. "Commander," Zedix watched in growing alarm as his fortress's most powerful weapons failed to even scratch the human. "Vessels. Impossible," he whispered. "No ship can move like that. No armor can withstand our crystal cannons." "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the human ships are charging their own weapons. Energy readings are ... unprecedented." Chun felt the moment arrive like a symphony reaching its crescendo. Through her neural link, she could sense her fellow captains preparing their attacks. Each ship had chosen its target based on tactical analysis that took place in microseconds, coordinated by human intuition and artificial intelligence working as one. "Fire," she whispered. The U's New Gettysburg unleashed its gravity cannons first. Space itself began to scream as artificial singularities formed around the fortress. The massive structure, which had stood unmoved for millennia, suddenly found itself caught in gravitational forces that twisted reality. Crystal spires snapped like twigs as the asteroid was pulled in impossible directions. The U's Harmony Station deployed its Nova bombs, miniature stars that exploded in controlled bursts around the fortress. The energy release was so intense that nearby asteroids were instantly vaporized. The fortress's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against attacks that created their own suns. Captain Chung's ship, the UES Retribution, targeted the fortress's central command structure with quantum torpedoes. The weapons didn't just travel through normal space. They punched holes between dimensions, striking their targets from angles that couldn't be defended against. One moment the command center was intact. The next, it was a cloud of expanding debris. The other Titan ships continued the assault with weapons that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Particle beams that ignored shields and armor, seeking out the crystalline matrix that formed Zephyrian bodies. Temporal distortion fields that slowed enemy ships to a crawl while the human vessels moved at normal speed. Molecular disruptor rays that simply erased matter from existence. Commander Zetherix felt his fortress dying around him. Systems that had functioned perfectly for thousands of years were failing one by one. His warriors, bred for conquest and trained from birth to fight, were fleeing in terror from weapons they couldn't understand. "All ships retreat to the inner systems," he ordered, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Warn the High Council. The humans have become something we did not expect." But retreat was not an option. Admiral Chun had linked her consciousness not just with her own ship, but with the entire human fleet. 7 minds working as one, guided by the fury of 2 million dead civilians. She could feel every enemy ship trying to escape, track every movement through hyperspace. No survivors, she transmitted to her captains. No witnesses. Not until we're ready to reveal ourselves to the galaxy. The hunting began. Captain Kim's ship, the UES Memorial, caught the first fleeing Zephyrian vessel as it tried to enter hyperspace. The Memorial's weapons reached across space-time itself, striking the enemy ship before it could complete its jump. The Zephyrian vessel came apart like a crystal statue hit by a hammer. Its pieces scattered across multiple dimensions. Captain Turner pursued a squadron of enemy fighters that thought they could hide in the asteroid field. The U's vengeance moved through the floating rocks like a hunting shark, its sensors tracking the crystalline ships by their unique energy signatures. One by one, the enemy fighters were destroyed, their crews never understanding how the human ship could be in 3 places at once. The battle that the Zephyrians had expected to last minutes stretched on for 6 hours. Not because the humans were having trouble winning, but because they were being thorough. Every enemy ship was hunted down. Every defensive system was methodically destroyed. Every communication array was silenced before it could send word of what had happened. When it was over, Zentra Prime no longer existed. The asteroid that had housed the fortress was gone, replaced by a perfectly spherical void in space. The defensive fleet that had protected the border for 3 millennia was nothing but scattered atoms, drifting in the vacuum. Admiral Chon disconnected from the tactical link and allowed herself to experience the aftermath through purely human senses. The silence was complete. Where moments before there had been thousands of alien minds focused on destruction, now there was only empty space and the quiet hum of her ship's systems. "Damage report," she requested. "Minor scorch marks on the hull of UE's Vengeance, Captain." Turner reported. "No casualties, no system failures. We're operating at full capacity." Chun nodded. The fortress that had stood unconquered for 3,000 years had been destroyed without a single human casualty. But she felt no satisfaction, only a cold certainty that this was just the beginning. "Set course for the next target," she ordered. "The aliens wanted to teach us about power. Class is still in session." Across the galaxy, other species had been monitoring the battle through long-range sensors. The destruction of Zentra Prime sent shockwaves through civilizations that had remained neutral in galactic politics for millennia. 7 unknown ships had obliterated the most powerful fortress in Zephyrian space. In the archives of the Ethereal Collective, ancient beings of pure energy began accessing records that had been sealed for 1,000,000 years. They remembered other young species that had faced extinction and emerged transformed. They knew what humanity was becoming, and they began to fear. On distant worlds, ambassadors sent urgent messages to their homeworlds. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. A new player had entered the game, and they were rewriting all the rules. But the Zephyrian High Council refused to believe the reports. A few primitive ships could not have destroyed their greatest fortress. The reports had to be false, perhaps caused by equipment failure or solar interference. They sent orders for the border fleets to advance and teach these mammals a final lesson. They never received confirmation that their orders had been received. The border fleets no longer existed. Admiral Chun and her Titan ships had already moved deeper into Zephyrian space, leaving a trail of destruction that would soon reach the very heart of their empire. The sleeping giant had awakened, and its footsteps shook the foundations of the galaxy. The news of Zentra Prime's destruction reached the Zephyrian High Council 3 days later. High Counselor Vextara read the report with disbelief, her crystalline body flickering with confused energy patterns. The greatest fortress in their empire, destroyed by 7 primitive ships. It was impossible. "Send the 3rd battle fleet to investigate," she ordered. These reports must be wrong. Perhaps the fortress suffered a reactor failure or was struck by an asteroid. But before the third battle fleet could reach the border, more reports arrived. 7 human ships had appeared at the mining world of Vol. Kefter, the planet's defensive fleet of 50 vessels, had been destroyed in minutes. The orbital stations that processed rare crystals for 1,000 years were now floating debris. Then came word from the industrial world of Zephmora. Shipyards where the Empire built its greatest warships had been turned into molten slag. The human ships had somehow ignited the planet's methane atmosphere, creating a firestorm that burned for days. High Counselor Vexthara stood before the great crystal display that showed the map of their empire. Red markers indicated worlds that had gone silent. The humans were cutting through Zephyrian space like a blade through soft crystal, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. "How many ships do they have?" she asked her military advisor. "Still only 7, High Counselor. But they fight like nothing we have ever seen. Our weapons pass through them as if they were ghosts. Their attacks tear apart our strongest defenses. Our best fleets are destroyed before they can even return fire." Vexthara felt fear creep through her consciousness for the first time in centuries. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled this region of space for 10,000 years. They had conquered dozens of species, enslaved entire star systems, and shaped the galaxy according to their will. No force had ever challenged their supremacy. Send a message to the humans, she decided. Offer them tribute, territory, whatever they want. This war must end before they reach our core worlds. Admiral Chun received the Zephyrian surrender offer. While her fleet was approaching their next target, she read the terms with cold amusement. The aliens offered to return to their original borders, pay massive reparations, and recognize human sovereignty over 100 star systems. "Captain Kim," she transmitted to the UES Memorial, "what do you think of their offer?" Kim's response carried all the pain of watching his crew die. "I think about the children on New Gettysburg who never got a chance to surrender. The families on Harmony Station who were vaporized while eating breakfast. Did the aliens offer them terms?" "Captain Turner," Chon asked the UES Vengeance, "your opinion?" "They killed my daughter while she was playing in her schoolyard," Turner replied. "They burned my husband alive in his laboratory. They can offer me their entire empire, and it won't bring them back." One by one, each captain gave the same answer. The time for negotiation had passed when the first orbital bombardment began. The aliens had chosen to commit genocide. Now they would learn the consequences of that choice. Chan composed her response to the Zephyrian High Council. 3 words that would become legendary across the galaxy. Unconditional surrender only. The Zephyrian response was swift and desperate. Every remaining fleet in their empire converged on their capital world of Zephyros Prime. 10,000 ships formed defensive lines around the planet where their civilization had begun. Ancient crystal cities that had stood for millions of years prepared for siege. The human fleet took 6 months to reach the capital system, not because of the distance, but because they stopped at every Zephyrian world along the way. Admiral Chun wanted to be thorough. She wanted to ensure that no trace of the Empire that had murdered human children would survive. Each attack was more devastating than the last. Captain Chang's ship, the UES Retribution, discovered that quantum torpedoes could chain react through crystalline matter. Entire fleets would come apart like dominoes falling as one explosion triggered the next. Captain Rodriguez of the UES New Gettysburg learned to use gravity weapons to turn gas giants into weapons. He would destabilize their cores, then direct the resulting explosions at enemy formations. Entire star systems became battlefields, where the laws of physics served human vengeance. The other species in the galaxy watched in growing horror as the humans carved their way through Zephyrian space. The ethereal collective, beings of pure energy who had existed since the galaxy's youth, called an emergency session of their ancient council. A new apex species has emerged, their leader announced to the assembled consciousness. The humans have transcended their physical limitations. They fight with weapons that reshape reality itself. Should we intervene? Asked another ethereal being. No, came the reply. The Zephyrians chose their path when they committed genocide against peaceful civilians. Let them face the consequences. The galaxy needs to see what happens when someone awakens humanity's true nature. When the human fleet finally arrived at Zephyros Prime, they found a sight that would have impressed any military strategist. 10,000 Zephyrian ships arranged in perfect defensive formations, energy shields that could stop supernova blasts, weapon arrays that could shatter moons, the accumulated military might of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. Admiral Chun studied the enemy formation through her neural link, feeling the tactical analysis flow through her consciousness at the speed of light. Her fellow captains shared their own assessments through the quantum communication network. Together, they saw every weakness, every opportunity, every way to turn the alien strength against them. All ships, Chun transmitted. Final attack. Pattern. End this war. The Battle of Zephyros Prime lasted 18 minutes. Not because the humans needed that much time to win, but because they wanted the galaxy to witness every moment of the Zephyrian Empire's destruction. The U-East Memorial struck first, using temporal weapons to slow half the enemy fleet to a crawl, while the other ships moved at normal speed. Thousands of Zephyrian vessels found themselves trapped in slow motion, unable to maneuver or return fire. The U.E.S. Vengeance targeted the planetary defense grid with molecular disruptor beams. The ancient crystal cities that had stood for millions of years simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered across space like cosmic dust. The U.E.S. Retribution activated its reality anchor, a weapon that locked local space-time into a fixed pattern. Enemy ships that tried to escape found themselves unable to enter hyperspace, trapped in normal space where human weapons could reach them. One by one, the other Titan ships added their firepower to the assault. Gravity weapons that created artificial black holes in the middle of enemy formations. Nova bombs that turned the space around Zephyros Prime into a miniature star system. Quantum cannons that fired backwards through time, destroying ships before they even knew they were under attack. The Zephyrian fleet, which had seemed impossibly large and powerful, came apart like a crystal sculpture struck by a hammer. Ships that had terrorized dozens of species were reduced to their component atoms. Warriors who had never known defeat died without understanding how they had been beaten. High Counselor Vexthara watched from her command ship as her empire died around her. The crystal cities of her homeworld were gone. Her fleets were destroyed. Her people's 10,000-year reign over this region of space was ending in fire and fury. Send a final message to the humans, she ordered her communications officer. Tell them that we acknowledge their supremacy. Tell them that the Zephyrian Empire surrenders completely and forever. Admiral Chun received the message as the last enemy ships were being destroyed. She considered the words for a moment, then composed her reply. Surrender not accepted. You killed our children. Now face extinction. The final phase of the battle was not a fight, but an execution. The 7 Titan ships surrounded the Zephyrian homeworld and activated their planet killer. Weapons. The world that had been the center of an empire became a cloud of debris orbiting its star. When it was over, Admiral Chun disconnected from her neural interface and sat in her command chair, feeling truly human for the first time in months. The war was finished. 2 million human civilians had been avenged. The species that had committed genocide against peaceful colonists no longer existed, but the implications of what humanity had accomplished rippled across the galaxy like shock waves. The Galactic Council, a body of ancient species that had maintained order for millions of years, convened an emergency session. They had recordings of the entire war, transmitted by automated probes that had witnessed humanity's transformation. The humans have announced themselves as the galaxy's new apex predators. The council leader declared, "They possess technology that makes our greatest weapons look primitive. They fight with a coordination and fury that no species has ever displayed. What do we do?" asked the representative from the Vegan Confederation. "We do nothing," the leader replied. "We watch, we learn, and we make very sure that we never give them reason to turn those weapons on us." On Earth, President Vasquez stood before the memorial wall that listed the names of every person killed in the Zephyrian attacks. The wall now bore a new inscription. They wanted to show us our place in the galaxy. We showed them theirs.